I know at some point it just went like, yeah, wait a minute, what's wrong asking for help? and that was Maddy's phone going on.
That's us showing vulnerability.
That's us showing vulnerability.
Our podcast is not perfect. 我要没有先聊。
Interesting.
算了。
来。
OK， 现在我们讲华语。
What happened? Suddenly 华语出来这样子。
So we're going to talk about welcome to the Imperfect Rainbow.
Yes, welcome to the Imperfect Rainbow. My name is Jeremy.
My name is Maddy.
Yes.
And we're going to talk about this very difficult episode, I think.
It's not difficult lah.
No, man.
I think we say
very
this...
difficult to say this word.
Okay, one
Five
is
vowels,
the word is a bit it's a bit of a tripper, like you need to pronounce it. But I think also because it's like a bit of a psychological concept. And we probably need to spend some time to explore this topic. I think this topic needs a bit of exploration,
Correct.
Deep diving, and then we can talk a little bit about how we can kind of really work through it. Yeah. So what is this word, Maddy?
This word is vulnerability.
Vulnerability.
In Chinese, we just Google. It's called 脆弱性.
脆弱性.
Weak. 脆弱 sounds really weak.
Yeah. So which is why I think when it comes to translation, it's always quite hard. I mean, some words are translated better, but often it's very difficult to translate the exact full meaning from one word to another. It's especially for words like vulnerability, where I think it's a bit of a concept. But it's a concept. It's not easy to directly translate.
How about I start first with the definition before we talk about why?
Sure.
Because
Yes,
why
please.
is a bit easier. So of course I must take the definition from Brene Brown because she is the emotions expert.
She's a leading researcher on vulnerability.
She is.
Well, when you think about the word vulnerability, it is Brene Brown that comes out. Yeah, it's Brene Brown comes out.
Exactly.
Yeah.
So I took this from her book, Dare to Lead, which is what I'm reading now. So she says, vulnerability as the emotion that we experience during times of uncertainty, risk, and emotional exposure. Vulnerability is not winning or losing. It's having the courage to show up when you can't control the outcome. This is her definition, and it really resonates.
Why so?
Because it's about this 脆弱性 whereby you want to do something but you don't know how it's going to turn out, but then you still do it anyway. And it takes vulnerability and courage.
Yeah.
And also a lot of like surrender, a lot of this emotional exposure, like she says. You just have to expose yourself fully in order to go and take that leap or of whatever that you cannot control. But you still do it because of a purpose or whatever.
Yeah. So I have I like the definition, and I also want to talk about vulnerability being, because this is me coming to my why, right? I feel that vulnerability is it's not an easy topic to talk about.
Super hard.
I think when we're preparing for it, we also realized not an easy topic.
It takes years to develop.
And I think there's a lot, which is why there's a lot of research on this, and I think the research is quite nuanced, and I think it's a deep concept. I also feel that it's a very misunderstood topic, right? And because I feel that vulnerability relates a lot to healing, self-acceptance, and self-identity. And I think we don't talk about vulnerability enough because we think genuinely we think it's a form of weakness.
External thing.
Yeah, and it's a weakness, right? And we don't like to talk about weakness.
Correct.
In a society where everything is about, putting your best front, perfection, your best angle on social media or Instagram, going for job interviews and showing the best of what you have on LinkedIn. Like nobody wants to talk about their weaknesses. Yeah. Nobody wants to talk about their vulnerabilities. But I think there is a space that we should have and we should hold to talk about that, because I think being able to access your own vulnerability, I think really helps with a lot of us when it comes to healing, self-acceptance, and self-identity.
And I really like it. I think this whole self-acceptance, self-identity is also a lot about being honest with yourself. Because if you're being honest with yourself, you know that you're also accepting a part of you.
Yeah.
And I think both Jeremy and I, we're always talking on the side, and probably we should just share. I think doing this podcast It's us showing up as being vulnerable human beings.
Yeah.
Firstly, with our names, we are the imperfect rainbow. We're not perfect rainbow, huh? We are the imperfect rainbow, and we are celebrating the imperfection.
We're celebrating imperfections,
And just,
always.
Yeah, and for
Always.
by us just sharing our stories and inviting guests to share their stories, this is us showing up to be practicing vulnerable.
Exactly.
And it's so lovely and it's so healing because we accept ourselves when we record.
Yeah.
We accept ourselves even more when we listen to our own recording, and we accept ourselves even more when you come in and thank us for our recording. So it's never ending, this whole acceptance and honesty.
Yeah.
I just want to share a little bit.
That's a really good point. How do you feel? Because you're right, when we share our own stories, we're just being very vulnerable, right, in front of the mic. How does that make you feel when you share about your vulnerabilities on air or in a public domain like that?
I feel so like just like sitting on a table and recording, I feel good to be able to talk about my stories to you, and I know that you are receiving with no judgment.
Safe space.
So I feel that
Yes.
I'm being heard, I'm being seen. There's no judgment, even though there's certain parts of what I'm sharing could be shameful, like my past, and the way I treat my husband, and all these kind of dark days. But I feel accepted when I'm just able to share. And then the fact that it's being recorded and aired, and you thanking us for our vulnerabilities, it's super healing.
Yes,
It's
it
like
is.
super like, oh my god, 是这样的吗? Like, I feel even more accepted.
Yeah. I think that it almost feels like we're giving permission to ourselves to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
Right? Because it's almost you took the first step of being vulnerable and you go like, wait a minute, it's not that bad.
Yeah.
And I realized that being vulnerable helps us to, as we talk through it, it's part of our healing.
Correct.
And then when people celebrate it together with us, it's not like we're not getting judged for it. We
Yeah.
are actually feeling we're accepted.
Correct.
And that actually propels us to even share more vulnerabilities.
And that is my why. So my why of why we wanted to talk about this vulnerability episode is because I know and I believe that it breeds connection. Like what I've just narrated, right?
Yeah.
Just sharing this on podcast, you know, you coming to us and you telling us that you've taken actions from certain things that you are inspired by.
Yeah.
It breeds connection, and this is just relating back to the mission of why we're doing this podcast. And when we connect, we are just more, we don't feel alone.
Yeah.
We feel supported by the people around us, even though if you don't know us, but you feel supported just by the sound of our voice and the stories that we share, that is connection. And I think, and I know, and of course I've read this in the book, that human beings are wired to connect.
Yeah.
Just like animals, right? We're just wired to connect. We are not meant to be alone. And alone is we don't need to be.
Yeah, agree. And I also want to talk about the other aspect of vulnerability, which is also part of my why, is I think because the previous episode we talked about gratitude.
Yeah.
Right? Gratitude being a life skill. And we talk about
practice.
practicing, yes. I think vulnerability is similar.
Yeah, it is.
It is similar, and I think it's also a life skill. And I think it is a life skill that is worth practicing. It's a life skill that is, like, if you haven't started, and I know it's a topic that you're not a lot
How
of
to practice vulnerable? How to show my weakness?
I think we'll talk about a little bit
Yeah.
about that later. But I think there's certain ways. I'm not sure if we call it practice, but there are definitely ways to learn to be more vulnerable, and perhaps in the learning of vulnerability, or to express or showing of vulnerability, it's the practicing of it. I think so.
Yeah.
But I think it is the part of getting the first part of just being aware and being able to acknowledge.
Yep.
Because you know what? All of us are not perfect.
Yeah.
And it's not always easy to accept the parts of ourselves that we are vulnerable.
Yeah.
Right?
It is about having the courage to show up when you can't control the outcome. Perhaps this is one of the how. Just knowing that, firstly, certain things that you want to control, just allowing and knowing that you just can't control.
Yeah.
Just drop. I mean, it's easy to say, right? Drop the control. But if you know that you're holding on to certain things you want to control, you want to know that you do A, you'll get B. Then when you're willing to be open and realize that you can't control the B, that is you being vulnerable.
Yes, exactly.
If somebody asks you a question and you don't have the answer, say, I don't know, is a form of showing vulnerability. It's as simple as that. Instead of, I think the answer is like, you know, gay kiang. Just say you don't know.
Make something up,
Correct.
Yeah. I think vulnerability is, which is why I talk about, I have that little thing about self-acceptance and self-identity. I think, firstly, be aware that you're not perfect.
Yeah.
So you listening out
Be
there.
aware, be okay with it.
So you listening out there, I want to tell you one thing that is 100% true about yourself, and you must accept it. You are not perfect.
And it's okay.
And it's okay. Okay. Hey, I can imagine now. I think a lot of people.
Jeremy,
I think a lot of people. A lot of people listening to this like get very triggered. What do you mean I'm not perfect? Of course I'm perfect. What are you talking about? Wow, trigger. So really, if you're listening to this, I want to tell you, whoever you are right now, even if you're the president or you're the smartest guy on earth, I don't care. You are listening to a truth and a fact. You are not perfect, but it's okay not to be perfect. Yeah. So I think vulnerabilities like that, being able to accept your vulnerabilities is to know that you're not perfect, and to know that yet you can be a good human being.
Yeah.
And I think my example to myself is, as you grow older, I feel that the wisdom that comes with age is knowing what I'm actually really, really good at, and actually knowing what I'm really not good at.
Correct.
And then admitting that I'm really not good at those, and be okay with it.
And not being sorry about it.
And not being sorry about it.
Yeah, I think this is also a big part about growing and maturing.
Yes, and I think that in itself is vulnerability.
Yeah.
Like I can and I want to put in a very real example in interview. In interview.
Oh, interview.
Right, interview.
I like this topic.
This topic, right? Because it's a great example to talk about how vulnerabilities is being expressed. You know how when you go for interviews and you're training for interview questions, right? And one of the classic interview questions is, what are your strengths and your weaknesses, or / your developmental areas? It's a typical question, but we know we all have to prepare for it when we go for interviews. Do you notice, and I don't know if you receive such training, but the way to strength is easy, right? Strength is talk about what you're good at, and then you give supporting examples to demonstrate how you are good at how you are able to demonstrate that strength. But for weaknesses, it's a bit tricky, isn't it? Because nobody really wants to hear about your weaknesses. And honestly, what weaknesses are you going to share? So obviously there's a tactic to kind of work around it, right? But for me, the interview is always about being able to demonstrate your attitude, your ability to learn and all that. And it's really not so much about the content. Like,
no, it's not.
It's not so much about telling me your actual
Yeah.
weaknesses, but more about how you overcome it.
Yes.
Yeah?
And how you really accept your weaknesses and how
Yes.
it's a lot of self-acceptance.
Yes,
Yeah.
yes. And I think that part about your development areas or weaknesses is your vulnerabilities. And I think if you think about what are some of the tactics that people train on answering this or handling this question, is talk about how you were able to, number one, be very clear, be very aware of which areas you're not very, very good at as opposed to your strength. And number two, what do you do to overcome it?
Yeah.
So these are the interviewer's tips on overcoming it.
Yeah.
But if you think about it, this is how we relate to vulnerabilities in our topic.
Yeah.
Because we want to know that we are not perfect. Yeah. Number one, accept it. Accept that you have weaknesses.
Yeah.
Accept that you are not you're not perfect in every area. You're not good at everything. Number two, talk about how you can overcome it.
And I like the point that you put about interview, right? Because I was also sharing with some colleagues over lunch is that having in the privileged position of being an interviewer, when we listen and we interview candidates,
that's right.
really what we want to look out for in a person is not what you can do. It's about the amount of vulnerability that you can show us. And there's no
Interesting, huh?
It's really about
the amount of vulnerability can
it's
show.
about what you are saying and demonstrating when you're not saying it. I don't know how to crystallize it into words, but it's really about how you demonstrate, like you say, overcome certain weaknesses, what you say when you don't say it. I don't know how to say. Maybe it's a feeling thing, I don't know. But because if a candidate answers the question that... let me rephrase this. If a candidate answers the questions to what we want to hear versus a candidate being vulnerable and being honest about her work, let me tell you something. The interviewers can tell the difference.
Yes, exactly.
I know it when you're trying to tell me something that I want to hear, but it's not truly yours. Just something is missing. Versus somebody who truly screws up in certain work, but he or she just owns up and just narrates the whole incident.
That's right.
I'm definitely going for candidate B.
That's right.
The one who is vulnerable.
Yes. Because this candidate very likely is a lot more self-aware, meaning that this person
and also reflective.
Yes, reflective. Knows clearly what he or she is not good at.
And she knows that she's not perfect. He knows that he's not perfect.
Exactly.
Yeah.
And you want a person like that on your team?
Yeah.
You do, right?
Yes.
Somebody who's going and because what you will likely have is then a person who knows very clearly what he or she is able to good at. Obviously do well in it, contribute well in it. And then for the areas that you're not so good at, your vulnerabilities, you get others trying to compensate for you. And that's how teams work in any organization. Because nobody is perfect.
Yes.
We all rely on each other's strength to make sure that the work is done well and the team keeps going. But that's how we kind of deal with vulnerabilities.
I like it. This is already like one big tip, right? In a way that know that you're not perfect and it's okay. And it's okay to not control the outcome, not know the outcome at all.
Yeah. And I think this is where I also want to segue a little bit into men.
Oh,
Yeah,
men.
into men. And I don't know why when I was preparing for this topic, I get a sense that it's a lot
Is
easier
it
for
an Asian
women.
men thing or men in general?
I think men across the world. Yeah. So let me give you some. I did a bit of research. Let me give you some statistics.
Yes,
Yeah. Okay.
we love numbers.
This is from the Harvard Medical School Health Blog, 2020. So and it was basically comparing lifespan,
women?
men and women,
Okay.
right? So on average, women live longer than men. In fact, 57% of all those ages, 65 and older, are female. By the age 85, 67% are women. In other words, by the age 85, the population of people who are 85 years old, 7 out of 10 are women.
Wow.
Only 3 out of 10 are men. So think about that. The average lifespan is about 5 years longer for women than men in the US, and about 7 years longer worldwide. In other words, around the world globally, women live longer than men, about 7 years longer.
Wow.
Yeah. So this
7 years is a long time.
7 years is a long time statistics. So they went on to kind of talk about some of the factors. Again, it's not direct causal. So some of the potential reasons why women live longer. And there were 2 that I picked up. So there were quite a few. I must say there were quite a few. I didn't pick everything up. But there were 2 that kind of spoke to me. One, suicide. Men commit suicide more often than women.
Wow.
This is true despite the fact that depression is considered more common among women, and women make more non-fatal suicide attempts.
Wow.
So some attribute this to the tendency for men to avoid seeking care for depression and the cultural norms that discourage men from seeking help for mental illness. And next one, this is really, really important. And that was exactly what you're talking about, Maddy, about connection. Men are less socially connected. For reasons that aren't entirely clear, people with fewer and weaker social connections, which tend to include more men than women, tend to have higher death rates.
Wow.
So think about it.
Connection, yeah.
Interesting. So
And death.
vulnerability. So I'm almost trying to get like a relationship here.
Yeah.
When you're not able to be vulnerable, means you are less likely to be connected. When you're less likely to be socially connected, you tend to have higher death rates. I'm not saying that this A equals to B equals C, but I'm saying that there are signs and there are symptoms. And it seems that directionally, this seems to be what we're hearing. So actually, this topic of vulnerability is super important.
So important.
Yeah, because we're talking
It's
about
just part
how...
of being human and being open and connecting yourself to another.
Yeah.
And just be joyful and it reduces the risk of early death.
Yeah.
Right?
And to that point about, being joyful and being connected, I always, don't you think about your observations in our life, don't you think that we always seem to have more women sitting around in a circle or in a group?
Yeah.
Any context, just generally.
Yeah.
We tend to have more like kind of women groups or women sitting in a group and just kind of talking about life, family, relationship. And then obviously in that situation, you start having connection.
Yeah.
You start sharing about vulnerabilities.
Yeah.
I would totally imagine.
Yeah.
And then because of that, you kind of, it almost becomes a support group, isn't it? Whether you designed it or intended it to be that way. But for men, a lot less, right?
Yes.
A lot less,
I don't
right?
have the numbers,
Yeah,
but I
yeah.
think definitely in terms of like what I see, in the markets, in the community centers, in like shopping area, usually like I say, it's more groups of women
Usually.
than men. Of course, men hang out in different areas from places that hang out. Perhaps maybe they connect in the gym or they connect in the gaming center. I don't know. Okay, but
Yeah.
I'm sure there are places that men connect, but. I mean, I don't have the stats, but I'm not surprised if women are better at socially connecting than men. Maybe I'm a woman. I'm saying it.
But yeah,
pure bias.
But
statement.
but you're right. I honestly don't observe men to have such deep connections. all
Why?
the time.
I think it's harder. Is it harder for men to be not able to control the outcome? Harder for men to accept and acknowledge that they're not perfect?
And I think without going too much into the details, I think men just find it a bit more harder to, in society, and I think this is how we are
Patriarchy.
conditioned.
Patriarchy,
Yes.
right?
We're living in a patriarchal society. And think about it. How many times have you seen in the media or seen in person, a boy is crying, and then the immediate response is, stop crying lah. Boys don't cry.
Yeah.
Wait a minute.
Yeah.
Why is
Why is crying a problem?
Why is crying a problem? Why is expressing an emotion a problem? Why can't boys cry? Why are you denying the boy of the right to have the emotion, to express the emotion? So I'm guessing, if you're listening to this and you're familiar with this, guess what? It means that it is a norm in society. And when it's a norm, it means that men are trained to hide their emotions, not to be verbal with our emotions, not to be able to articulate our emotions.
Yeah.
Perhaps that's the reason.
And we are doing this vulnerability thing, talking about men and all. We're not saying that to be vulnerable means to air out all your emotions, all your sob stories, or all your feelings and emotions. But in fact, if you learn to be vulnerable, you learn how to set better boundaries.
Yes.
You learn how to ask good questions. You learn how to show up in ways that actually protects your energy, and at the same time still have that space for connection, and then that connects with another person.
Exactly. In fact, knowing your vulnerabilities help you to understand yourself better, and help you to appreciate yourself better, and don't feel shit about yourself. Because if you know, I have vulnerabilities. Yes, I do have vulnerabilities, but guess what? I also have my strengths. This is what I'm good at, I know. And this is what I'm not good at, I know. Tell me something that I don't. So I think that you're being very certain about who you are. And I think being able to confront those vulnerabilities and go yes, this is who I am. Take it or leave it. I think that's very powerful.
I like it.
I wonder how many of us come to the point where this is who I am, take it or leave it. How many of us come to that?
Yeah, so this 2 weeks, today as we record, right, is a big season for me. As I learn to accept, really not only accept, but embrace who I am. I think this question of who I am, this existential reason, why are you here on
question.
Earth? This is really woo, but it's never too late, because only in these last 2 weeks, then I realized or rather I step into a new identity for me.
你的 story 來了
So it's a vulnerability season for me, as I just tendered my resignation with the company. I think by the time you listen to this episode, I should be around my last week or so already in the company, I think, or somewhere around
depends
April.
on when this is being released.
Correct.
But such big news, Maddy. Oh my God.
Big news.
Such big news.
This is completely vulnerable because I've always been part of corporate world.
Right.
I've always been a fully salary person, whereby every single month I can sleep and I wake up and the money still comes into my bank.
Yes, you receive the bank. You receive the payment salary on the 25th or 28th of the month. Yes.
I've always got a support group of colleagues. I've got things that's being planned out. I've always got a laptop that is being paid for by the company. I've got all these things that's so secure. But in last 2 weeks, I have made a decision to resign from a company that I love, from a culture that is so wonderfully fantastic, for people that supports me, and for the people that I love. So this is a new thing. This is hard, but I'm really also very proud of myself for doing it.
Yes, I'm very proud of you for doing it.
Yeah, thank you so much.
Step, Maddy, huge step.
You paved the way for that courage, to be honest.
Yeah, but I want to say, her decision is not affected because of me. Okay?
No. And in fact, the decision to do this is a lot about accepting who I am, understanding the value that I can contribute to my organization versus what I can be when I become a nutrition coach, which is really stepping into my purpose journey.
Right.
And then and also knowing that there's nothing certain about being a solopreneur. I may be having monthly deficit for I don't know how many months. It's like a risk that I'm willing to take.
Right.
And then it's also about feeling the excitement and abundance and the possibilities of I don't know how it will be. I don't know when my client will sign. There are also moments whereby I ask myself, okay, what if I quit and then I put out my offer and nobody want to sign up with me? What if for many months, 我就是吃自己 of all these
eat grass,
man. I've got all these uncertainties and all these questions, bing bong, to and fro in these last 2 weeks, and this is really my big vulnerability moment.
How did it make you feel when, because I'm hearing that you're so exposed right now. Honestly, the feeling is that you're going from a salary employee to a solopreneur. You're going from a familiar environment, something totally new. You are exposing yourself. You're being so vulnerable. How is that making you feel right now, being so vulnerable?
I feel really excited, to be honest.
Okay.
In fact, this morning, my husband asked me, and he seldom asks questions, but then he's been getting better at asking questions.
Good.
So he asked me, in this decision that you take, do you feel more scared or excited? So I told him, to be honest, I feel a lot more excited than scared. There is this element of fear,
Right.
for sure.
For
but
sure.
there is more of excitement because this decision is aligned with my core desires. And I
Yeah.
always remember my core desires that I've set for myself this year.
Which
And
is?
that is abundance, creativity, infinite possibilities.
Wow.
So I know that taking this step is going to be so much more aligned with the desires that I want for this year
Yeah.
versus staying in a very amazing, comfortable, paid salary job. And it's a decision that I've not really planned for. It's something that I've thought about.
Yep.
But to be honest, I also didn't expect that it will happen so soon.
Right,
It was
right.
a lot about responding to the moment now.
I mean, it was in the plan.
It was in the plan,
but
it was in the thoughts,
You didn't put a timeline.
There's no
to the
timeline.
step,
I thought
the
that
plans,
probably
yeah.
I will still be in the organization for another 2 years or 1 year. So
Yeah.
in fact, when I share the news with so many of my lovely colleagues there, many were shocked, but I'm even more grateful that there are so many happiness and
supportive
generosity
ones. Yeah.
of their words to me. And what people are always, the common theme that people say is oh my God, Maddy, you're so courageous. You're so brave. You're so inspiring.
Yeah.
Oh my God, you're really doing your passion. So I think what I get out of it is being vulnerable is also a big part of being brave and courageous. And that inspires people as well. So yeah, this is my little story.
Oh yeah. Working through a vulnerability definitely take a courage.
Yeah.
What do you think gave you that courage to work through your vulnerabilities and go like, I think I can overcome this. I can do this.
I think the courage, firstly, is being very honest with myself. Being honest with myself, and I mean asking so many different kind of questions. Asking what am I good at? Asking at how satisfied I am in the value that I'm giving to the organization, and how much energy that I'm investing in doing this side hustle of coaching and nutrition, social content and things like that versus the work. It's being so honest and also asking, where am I really excited about next? So it's asking questions and then answering these questions very honestly to yourself.
Yeah.
And then soul searching, and then like talking to coaches, talking to you, talking to my husband. Getting his support is a big thing for me too. Knowing that, and then asking questions like, what is the worst case that can happen? And then being very comfortable with all these answers, and then also giving myself the time and space to navigate through these questions.
Wow. I picked up so much just from that 1 minute. Okay, two things, right? First thing is being so honest with yourself.
Yeah, it has to start with that.
So
Step
vulnerability is about being so honest with
So
yourself.
honest.
And then asking all the questions for you to be honest with yourself. Yeah, I mean, and I can relate to this because, obviously I've kind of gone through that journey just very recently. Moving to a new job, new company, also leaving the same company that Maddy had left, and we both love the company. We do. Great culture, great people, great products. But yes, it's about sitting down and being so honest about what you want. And no bullshit about it.
No bullshit.
Because you know what? You can lie to the rest of the world. You can lie to everybody.
Yeah.
You can lie to the person sleeping beside you. You cannot lie to yourself.
Yeah.
Because when you sit with yourself, in your emotions, in the time, in the time when you're alone, in your own thoughts, you can't lie to yourself.
Yeah.
But you know what? The saddest people are those who lie to themselves. Right? The saddest people on earth are those who lie to themselves.
And they probably don't know.
They don't
or
realize
don't want
it,
to acknowledge that
or they don't
lying to
acknowledge
themselves.
it, but
Yeah.
it eats away at them. It
It
eats
eats
away at
away,
them
you're
because they
right,
are
you're right.
denying themselves every single day.
You're
But
right.
that's a sidetrack. But yes, so being honest with yourself is such an important step in terms of navigating vulnerabilities.
Correct.
And asking that question. And I think I liked what you also talked about. What's the worst thing that could
What's the
happen?
worst? Yeah.
I think we undermine the power of this question.
Yeah.
What's the worst that could happen?
Yeah.
So I think, in my mind, when you are faced with a situation where you're vulnerable, or you feel that this is something that I'm feeling very, very vulnerable about, perhaps a good question or a good way to think about it is, what's the worst that could go wrong? What is the absolute worst that can go wrong? And then when you think about the answer, guess what? Not that bad lah.
Yeah.
Not that bad lah.
And this question can be applied to everything, you
Yeah,
know.
not that bad
Applying
lah.
for a new job,
Yeah.
leaving a company,
Yeah.
saying hi to this person that you really like at a
Yeah,
bus stop, for example. What is
exactly.
the worst case that can happen?
What's the worst thing that happen?
Yeah.
No law.
Okay, it's just applying this thing about vulnerability. So, okay, my younger daughter, she has a fear of going to the toilet by herself.
Why?
Sorry, rephrase.
interesting.
She has this fear about auto flushes at the toilet.
She's fearful of Auto flushes.
Yes.
This is interesting.
Yes.
Okay, tell me more. This is the first time I've heard of someone afraid of auto flushes.
So now she's 10 years old and she has become a lot more braver in approaching toilet with auto flushes.
So cute.
And why I want to talk about this example, because yesterday we were in a shopping mall and then again, she's a bit like fearful about sitting on the toilet bowl by herself. Because, last time she always have me cover that sensor thing.
Right.
Because she don't want it to flush.
While she's on it.
While she's peeing. Okay, it's a very small thing.
Interesting.
So yesterday when she's at the toilet and then she's like, she want me to cover. And I'm like, no, you can do this by yourself. And then I asked her this question. What is the worst case that can happen? I say, the worst thing that can happen is that the water flush and then your butt get wet. That's all. And then she's like, and then I see a ding moment in her.
Eureka!
Yeah, and then she asked me, did your butt get wet just now? And I said, no, my butt didn't get wet. The worst thing is your butt get wet. And then after that, she just sat in the toilet bowl.
So cute! So she's afraid of her butt getting wet.
She's afraid of a lot of imaginary fear.
Right.
I think she's afraid.
Crocodile come out from under.
Yeah, correct. I don't know what she's exactly fearing.
Anaconda come out
Correct. Or she's fearing that she'll get stuck into the toilet bowl. So like when I made it clear that the worst case scenario is that the butt getting wet if it flushes, then I think it became less fearful. She became friendly with the worst case scenario. And then she went to do it.
Yeah.
很 powerful 的, even like a little girl going to the toilet.
Yeah, but that's actually a really helpful way to just tackle it. To tackle all that world of unimaginable fear and all that about vulnerability. What's the worst that could happen?
Correct, because most of it is just in our mind.
It really is. It really is.
About that
What's
emotional
the worst that could
exposure, which is what Brené Brown said, right?
Yeah. Okay, that's a good example. I like that.
Suddenly 想到.
Suddenly 想到. Okay, so I want to talk about vulnerability in the workplace.
Leadership.
Yeah, that's interesting. Yeah, because when I was thinking about vulnerability, I'm thinking about where's the place that you are most fearful about showing up your vulnerability. Yeah, and I think it's the workplace. Because anything about it, in the work, we spend so much time at work, number one, and that's a fact, that's a fact. Let's not even dispute that. We spend so much time at work. Some of us see our colleagues more than we see our parents. Correct?
Definitely.
Some of us see our colleagues more than we see our partners, our family members. So that's a fact. Now, the thing is this. When you're at work, we always feel that vulnerability, again, is something that we need to hide. Because we need to show that we can do well.
Especially if you're somebody with authority.
Especially.
Right? When you have certain ranks. When you are a people leader.
Especially. Because people think that if you're a people leader, or you are a manager, or you're a director, whatever, but if you're people leading, you need to have all the answers.
Yes, you need to know everything.
You need to know everything.
Tell me what to do.
Yes, you need to be perfect, right? And I think that is the part where that's the part where we need to learn, because in my observation of years in the corporate world, some of the best leaders I've seen, and you can chime in on this.
Yes.
Some of the best leaders I've seen are those who are vulnerable.
Correct.
So these leaders are the ones that go like, okay, I'm a leader, so what?
I don't have the answers. Let me get back to you.
I don't have the answers. Can we figure it out together? Can we do a cross-functional team? Can we get supply chain to come in? Can we Can we talk about what's the best way forward?
And another thing that a vulnerable leader will say, I need help.
Yeah, I need help on this.
Answers. I don't have the context. Can you give me more information? I need help. That is being vulnerable.
Yeah.
When you are willing to accept that you are at the brim and you need help and you ask for it. Vulnerable.
I think you just unlock something in me.
Like?
I think that was my issue for a long time.
So
oh my
your
god!
Previous job days.
I think you just unlocked something here. Oh my god! What did you do?
But we talked about vulnerability also needing that experience and the maturity and the years.
Yeah.
We all have been in our unvulnerable days, people pleasing days.
Yeah. Because
tell us what shifted in you now.
You talked about
asking for help.
Oof. Wow, I struggled with that for a long time. And I think the fear and the vulnerability here is, I always feel that when I ask for help, I'm given the impression that I'm not good at my job. I'm not good enough. I think that's been my narrative for a very, very long time. And that was a vulnerability that I felt that I cannot expose. Because if I show that I'm asking for help, I admit defeat. I concede defeat, that I'm not good enough. And I think that pain or that the action of recognizing I'm not good enough is so bad
that you choose not to recognize.
That I will choose not to ask for help. That I will choose to try spend more time on it, try to solve it on my own,
away?
hide it somewhere, but I do it in secret. just so that I don't ask for help. I think it was a big problem for me for a long, long time.
It sounds painful.
It sounds painful. It sounds painful because what it means, you struggle alone in the darkness, in the shadow. It's painful because you really don't know where to get the answers, but yet you don't dare to ask for help. And then you don't want to look like you don't know how to solve a problem, but you really don't know how to solve a problem. So you're in this space where you're very conflicted.
So let me ask you, if imagine you are in those days where you are struggling with asking for help.
Yeah.
If you were to ask yourself then that question, what is the worst case scenario of asking for help? What would that answer be?
I think okay, let me go back to those years. If you ask what's the worst case, okay, I don't ask for help. What's the worst case that will happen?
If you ask for help,
the worst case that will happen is nothing. Just learn.
就是没有东西 right?
Yeah, I guess just learn from it. Nothing, life goes on. I mean, I'm really kind of thinking through, right?
Yeah.
What's the worst case? Maybe the worst case is I'll feel lousy for a day, or worst case I'll feel like that I'm not capable for a while. I don't know, like, yeah.
And it's interesting, right? As you like, try to answer this question versus like the worst case scenario, feeling lousy for a day versus struggling by yourself in those days where you are trying to get the answer but you don't know, but actually weighing it with just asking for help.
Yeah.
And then having one day where you kind of do it alone. It kind of, I don't know whether it puts things into perspective.
It does. And I think how I got out of that, or how I learned to work with that vulnerability or overcome that vulnerability, not overcome, but kind of like working through that vulnerability.
It's never an end.
Is changing my narrative, knowing that like no one is perfect. And it's okay not to have the answers.
Yeah.
No matter how senior you are, no matter how smart you are, no matter how experienced you are, it's okay not to have all the answers.
Yeah.
And it's okay to ask for help. And asking for help is not a sign of weakness. Asking for help is just a sign that we are all humans.
Yeah.
Yeah. And in fact, asking for help can actually start building more relationship with different people and help you to be a bit more resilient and help you to actually learn more things.
Yeah.
So I think that shift in mindset, honestly, I can't remember how that shift in mindset came. But I know at some point it just went like, yeah, wait a minute, what's wrong asking for help? and that was Maddy's phone going on.
That's us showing vulnerability.
That's us showing vulnerability.
Our podcast is not perfect.
Okay.
Yeah. But I really like it that you're using vulnerability in terms of leadership, because I think to be vulnerable is to be even more human than you are the higher you go.
Yeah.
It means that even more human means even more honest, knowing that you're not perfect and knowing that you can ask for help and knowing that you're just as human as a lowest ranking colleague.
Yeah,
nothing is with the only exception of the authority or the rank, but you're just as human as everyone else. That connects a leader to the team, right?
Which is why we always say we have a shared humanity, isn't it? That we are really no different from one another.
Yeah.
We have very, very similar shared experiences, and you shouldn't be ashamed of our vulnerabilities, because once you share it, you start realizing that, a lot of us have the same vulnerabilities or same fears, and it's okay, right? But I think one thing that really, and now that again I'm thinking about on the episode, that kind of me shifting my mindset, I think the biggest change for me in the scenario, on the situation, was learning not to tie my self-worth to wanting to ask for help.
Wow.
So wanting to ask for, if I ask for help, it doesn't mean that I am useless. If I ask for help, it doesn't mean that I'm incapable. If I ask for help, it doesn't mean that I'm not good enough. I think at some point in time, I was able to kind of break that. Because if I did not break that, every time I ask for help, it will always mean I'm not good enough. I'm incapable. I'm useless. I'm But the fact that I know that, hey, I'm just asking for help because it's just normal to ask for help.
So just by acknowledging that you are enough, and just by detaching that fear from your worth, makes you able to show up and to be vulnerable by asking questions. And it's coming from a space of I'm enough. But I'm enough, but I don't have the answer to this question, and I need your help. Can you ask? Can you get the help for me? Can you help me? Can you teach me? Can you show me? I think this kind of vulnerability is what makes a team respect their leader. Right? Oh, my leader is also as human as you. Yeah.
Oh my God! When we were just talking, I had this amazing narrative in my mind that I think I need to own it.
Like,
the narrative is, I'm enough, but I'm not perfect.
Oh.
Yeah, it just hit me.
I'm enough, but I'm not perfect.
Yes. I'm enough, but I'm not perfect. I think it's a new narrative I want to own.
I love it.
I'm enough. I'm enough as who I am today, as is. I'm enough, but I'm not perfect.
Wow.
But I'm not perfect means I can learn.
Yeah.
I'm not perfect means I can ask for help.
Yeah.
I'm not perfect means I can do a lot of things without the fear of my self-worth and self-identity being affected, because I am enough. I'm first enough before I'm not perfect. Oh my God.
Wow.
Oh,
I think
did it just happen to the
I think
podcast?
to you listening this, right? I mean, like, because we don't have an answer on how to be vulnerable.
Yeah.
But if you can just repeat this, what Jeremy said to
I'm
yourself.
perfect, but I am enough.
I am enough,
but I'm not perfect.
But I'm not perfect. I think you can just say it, chant it, or whatever, shout
Chant
it
it.
3 times. I'm enough, but I'm not perfect. Wow, that is empowerment.
It is. And a lot of times it's the narrative. We always talk about this.
Yeah.
It's the narratives in our mind
That drives our feelings and our actions.
Yes.
Yeah.
And it all starts with the thought in your head.
Yeah.
So yeah, I'm really happy to kind of chance upon that.
Yeah, so if you're a team leader, okay, I'm just saying that this out. If you're a team leader,
All
and
little
if you
tips to all the people managers out there.
and if you have got feedback from your team about, I don't trust my team leader, I don't feel the authenticity, I don't feel that I can trust you, or I can share my whatever challenges with you. I think feedback are important. I mean, also depending on who gives the feedback. But I think feedback, if you want to grow as a person in an organization, or even at your marriage, for example, if you hear feedback that like this, I can't speak to you, I can't trust you, I think it's worth checking in your behaviors.
Yeah.
And what are the thoughts that's in your mind? Are you trying to be the perfect wife? Are you trying to be the perfect mother or the perfect leader?
Yeah.
If you have this trying and you're trying to control the outcome of being a perfect leader, then it's worthy to check in, how much of vulnerability are you practicing?
And what kind of thought do you have
what
holding
is
on
the
to
narratives?
that? Yeah, what's the narrative about being the perfect wife? What's the narrative about being the perfect employee? And challenge yourself. Is it something that you want to hold on to? Is it helping you? Is it serving you? And if it's not, what can you do about it?
Yeah.
Because I think it always starts with a narrative.
Correct.
And if you can change your narrative, you can change your action, your thoughts, and all that. I mean, your results.
Yeah.
Yeah. 'Cause
Wow, I like that.
that's really good, huh? That's really good. Thanks. I always see we are therapizing ourselves here.
No, this is completely your thing. I'm just watching you having the aha moment.
Right? Isn't it nice to kind of
it's very
see that?
nice. It's very, very nice.
So funny. Okay, the second thing I want to talk about in the workplace with vulnerability is, and this step coming from me being involved in diversity and inclusion work, and I think vulnerability is a big part of diversity and inclusion. Correct. Because we always talk about having a safe space. So once you create a psychological safe space, or you're able to kind of foster that kind of psychological safe space in the workplace, you allow people to then, be certain that when they show their vulnerabilities, they're not being judged. Exactly. So that's what you want. And we know that everybody has vulnerabilities. So what's the big deal, right? So the whole idea is, how do you foster an environment to help us be a bit more vulnerable, but at the same time, when we are showing vulnerabilities, we connect. And what you said, we connect better as a group. We support one another, and we actually gain trust in the team. So
tell us the story.
So I have a little suggestion here. And this is, I feel that one of the ways we can overcome vulnerability is for us to create a space, right? And I think obviously HR has a way to support this, but I want to talk about my story and you remember this.
Yes.
This is from our business unit that we were together in. This is a few years ago. I think during COVID.
Yes.
Was it during COVID?
2021.
Yeah.
Okay.
2021, right? I think so.
Yeah.
So it was, I think there was one of our town halls that we have. And I think that one of the focus topics was on diversity and inclusion. I remember we were just starting
That's
out.
at the start of D&I.
I think at the start, yeah. And then we were still trying to, get people to understand what does diversity and inclusion mean.
And so we're all at home, locked down.
We're all at home, locked down. And then, our boss at the time reached out to us and reached out to me and say, hey, Jem, can you do a topic on D&I? And maybe you can share and you can think about what you want to share. But I think we were talking about it and we said, why don't you share your story? Because sharing my story is probably the most, the easiest way, right? To kind of introduce the topic of diversity.
No, it's not easy at all.
Yeah, well, not easy, but how should I put it? It is the most
authentic.
Yeah, most authentic. Yeah, thank you. I think most authentic way to then present myself and then talk about how D&I impacts the organization. At that time, I was kind of openly gay, right? Yeah, and openly out. in the business unit. And I said, okay, let me do it. I mean, I've been opening out, but yet I've not
presented
it in that way before. So I said, okay, let's do it, right? And I'm not hiding anything. I'm leading a D&I team in the office and all that, and I've nothing to hide. If it helps to kind of further the agenda, let me do it. So I prepared a simple deck, and it was about my childhood, what I've gone through in my life, and then the experiences that shaped me to who I am today. And obviously, a big part of it is my journey as a gay man, right, working in the corporate culture. So I obviously delivered a presentation, and I kind of ended the presentation on how we need to really build a greater D&I culture in the company, because then stories like myself wouldn't be the first. It wouldn't be rare. And what you really want is for employees to feel like they're in a safe space, to be authentic, embrace who they are. And when we do that, we're able to bring the 100% and the fullness of ourselves into work, not having to hide about who I am, think about what to answer when people ask me how's my weekend, when I'm married. Like, all of that actually put a lot of mental stress on any LGBT employees in the company. And so I did that presentation, and I kind of ended off with like a final slide on me and my partner and my dog, I think, saying that this is my happy family unit. And I'm thankful that I'm able to be in a company that supports my D&I journey.
Yeah, and just to you listening, so Jeremy did this over a online virtual session. I think
the team session.
40 of us or something like that. I can't remember, but 40, 50 of us.
Yes.
It was the first time, I think, that we got together as a business unit to listen to somebody's personal story. It's 100% personal that Jeremy shared about like childhood and his gay journey. And it was, and I remember that we're all on our own at home, right? But paying so much attention to this. And then for me, I'm most surprised when I think I messaged you after that. I'm most surprised when you shared that it's the first time sharing this story. And this is you completely vulnerable. And I think to what Jeremy said, even him acknowledging that he's gay openly, showing that he's gay, but and doing it in the story to online 40 people is a completely different vulnerability.
It's a completely different experience.
Yeah, it's just showing up is different. It's vulnerable to the next level.
Yeah.
And I must really affirm your courage. It's a lot of courage.
Thank you.
But you still went ahead and do it for a bigger purpose of this whole D&I thing.
Thank you.
And tell us what happened after that.
I tell you, you cannot imagine the response. So in my preparation, I just thought like I'll share my story, and because in my mind I'm thinking like no big deal, right? Some of you already know, me and my partner and all that. I'm like no big deal. So I shared it, to the best of my ability and as honest as I can. And once when you're sharing your PowerPoint,
you cannot see your slides.
You cannot see the people because you're only seeing your screen where your PowerPoint slides. So when I stopped sharing and everybody had the cameras on, I saw people crying on the screen, and that took me by surprise. People were really touched. Some people were crying, and then and you could see everybody was visibly connected
to your
touched.
story.
I almost felt like the entire wall of whether it's the workplace wall came down.
Yeah, there's no like you're this rank, I'm this rank, you're this and that. Everybody became one.
Yeah, it almost kind of felt like we all it was a moment of shared humanity. And very interestingly, because it was me being vulnerable and sharing my story, it became a moment of shared humanity. And then the floodgate opened, and then somebody started talking about. Another colleague came out about her being a lesbian, right, on screen in the call, and then somebody came out and talked about how she's so touched by the experience. Somebody then reached out to me later. Oh, my brother's gay too. How do I talk to him?
Wow,
you really feel that the wall of distrust or whatever you have in terms of kind of blocking us from connecting one another, it all just came down. It all just melted, and there was an instant connection to like almost amongst everybody, realizing that there's a shared humanity. So that was such a powerful moment that when you share your vulnerability, you encourage more vulnerability, and people feel safe to share their vulnerability. It's unbelievable.
And I just have a thought, when you're talking, I'm just like wondering to you, if you have trouble making connections with people, okay, in any area, right? If you have trouble having friends or maintaining certain relationships or whatever challenges that you may have about connection, right? I think it's worthy to consider how vulnerable you are.
Ooh, I like that.
Right? Because when why I say this, because when you say that you finish a story and it's like this shared humanity and people connecting with you,
Yes.
even people who may not have worked with you before, but just by listening to your story, they feel connected. If you enjoy our podcast so far, because I hear from some of you saying that, I don't know you, but I feel that I know you better.
Yeah.
I miss you so much, Jeremy, because you're not in the company anymore. But then listening to you makes me feel connected. This is one of our one of colleagues said this. So
That's right.
if you feel connected just listening to us, that's because we are truly being vulnerable. Can you imagine you don't know us, but if you're connected with us, can you imagine the power that you can have with connecting another one if you're being vulnerable?
Yeah.
Vulnerable, not saying that, I don't know any shit, I don't care. No, it's just realizing that you're enough, but you're not perfect.
That's right. And that's such a good point to make that, sometimes maybe some of us struggle to make genuine connections because we may not be able to, like, we're not able to confront our own vulnerabilities, and we don't know how to show up, right, in our vulnerabilities, and being real in that sense.
Yeah.
So I think it's a really good, important point to make. And I also want to say, but I'm also not asking you to go out there and tell people all my weakness and all my issues and all the areas that I'm like terrible in. I don't think it's that.
I think it's connecting with yourself first.
Yes.
As an honesty step.
Yeah.
One, I truly feel that the first step is connecting with yourself.
Yeah.
Practicing gratitude to yourself. I think that can be a first good step.
Yeah.
Secondly, is really asking yourself questions and reflecting upon them. And then decide what to do.
I think the vulnerability bit is being able to sit with yourself and vulnerabilities, acknowledging who they what they are, makes you a person who is definitely easy to connect. Because then people know you're authentic. Because you know what, I think people can always tell whether you're authentic, whether you're real.
It's a feeling thing.
And you can sense
sometimes the words you say, sometimes your body language, sometimes if you're trying to lie to yourself, and then unfortunately maybe you're really good with your words, but then your body language shows up.
That's right.
Hello, we can tell. It's just like candidate A and candidate B doing interviews, right? We can tell.
Yes,
if
people
you're
can sense
experienced
it.
enough, if you're a person who is practicing a lot of self-work, grounding yourself, vulnerability, all this, you can tell it when a person is sincere or not.
Yes.
I mean, not like a good or bad person, but really, that shows you differently from another person.
Yeah. And vulnerabilities definitely help you to be a more authentic person.
Authentic, then you can connect.
And that leads to connections. Yeah. And connection obviously to better relationships and improve relationships.
And this is what we want to do in our podcast. To use our stories to heal, to connect, and to make the world a better place. Really, right? That's our mission.
Right. Yeah. Unbelievable. This story is, it happened so many years ago, but I'm still thinking about it now. It gives me just a bit of goosebump moment. Yeah. And I think if you're from LBU and you're listening to this, I think you remember. I mean, if you were there, I think you remember that moment. I remember that. I think it's one of probably the top experiences in my life to remember.
Yeah. I think putting ourselves out and up in any way is vulnerable, but it's at the same time very liberating.
Yeah, it is.
Yeah,
it is.
And I'm looking forward to putting myself out, as a full-time solopreneur soon.
So exciting.
I have no idea how it's gonna be. I'm just gonna
excited.
I'm gonna be expose myself in a very intentional way. To serve my purpose and see how it goes, lor. Yeah, I'm scared, but I'm still gonna do it anyway.
Yes. And one last thing I want to say. Recently you posted on Instagram that blooper video. I really liked it.
Yeah, that blooper video actually got a lot of views. I'm a little bit surprised.
Yes. Because again, why? Because when you show bloopers, you're showing our vulnerabilities. You're not showing us the curator, the editor, the filtered version, which is obviously there's a space for that, right? There's a space for that because you want it to be a good communication video to talk about whatever point you're trying to make and to give good content. There's a space for that. But I think when you're able to share that blooper video about how hard you're trying to get there, the silly mistakes you make, people relate to it. People relate to vulnerabilities because they know that I'm not alone in this. You are going through it as well. That's how connections are developed.
Correct.
Because people realize I'm not alone in this. You are sharing the same embarrassment as me. You are sharing the same shame as me. You are sharing the same paise as me. You are sharing all of that. And then that makes us say, hey, we're actually quite similar. That's how people connect. Oh, like we're no different.
humanity,
That's our shared humanity.
thing. Yeah.
Exactly.
I think my purpose for sharing that boober video is just to show that, hey, this is real.
This is real.
There will be the curator side of it because it's scripted and all, but this is the real side of me. I've got nothing to hide about it. I'm not shameful. It's ugly, but then it's funny, but it's real.
It's funny.
and this is how, like, you know, being a fitter version of yourself or being a whatever version of yourself, you need to go through all these failures to enjoy the process lah. Wow, 这个 episode 还 OK.
I love it,
Yeah,
I love it.
I love it.
I think this 2 episodes is I
it's
love
so
it.
hard, but I love it.
I love it.
I love it. Vulnerable. Quotes.
Okay, quotes.
Okay, 我讲先啊。Okay, this is a proper quote.
I know how efficient we are. Okay, that line very efficient.
我是 type 8的嘞。
quotes.
Sorry, 我是 type 7的。
Okay, yes. Come, let's wrap up the episode with 2 quotes.
Okay,
one
so
from you
this
and me.
quote is by Steve Jobs.
Steve Jobs. Okay.
Yeah, so he says this: have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become. Everything else is secondary. 讲完了。
One more time.
Have the courage to follow your heart and intuition. They somehow already know what you truly want to become.
Yep.
Everything else is secondary.
So
if you're stuck in a crossroads,
Yep.
you know, if you're battling with something, use the courage and just listen to your heart and intuition. They, as in your heart and your intuition, already know what you truly want to become. That's vulnerability.
And you feel that quote really helps us to confront, right? Or acknowledge our vulnerabilities.
Yeah, because a lot of times it's our brains, it's our mind, and it's bringing us to all places.
All the fears, all the anxiety,
fears,
all the imagined scenarios.
The anaconda from the toilet bowl.
Yeah.
It's in all the mind.
Yes.
But when we listen to our heart and drop in the intuition, then it's really nothing much so fearful. And it's still going to be fear, but then you will have that courage to go and take the action.
Yeah, because guess what? You're not the only one that's fearing of an anaconda coming out from toilet bowl.
What is the worst case scenario?
Somebody else has
Ask
got
yourself
that
this
fear
question.
too. Okay, thanks for sharing that. And this is my quote. And of course, it's going to be Brene Brown, right?
Oh.
Because it's going to be a vulnerability.
Our favorite.
I'm reading another book from her. I thought it was just me, but it isn't. That's the title of the book. I thought it was just me, but it isn't.
Yeah.
So this it is a passage. I'll read a passage because I think the entire passage is quite worthy to read off. So one of the benefits of sharing our story is experiencing knowing laughter, quote unquote, knowing laughter. So what's knowing laughter? Knowing laughter is the laughter that results from recognizing the universality of our shared experiences, both positive and negative. It embodies the relief and connection we experience when we share our stories. And I feel this is why you are listening in. Because when you hear our stories, you relate to it, and you have a knowing laughter, and you go, and on that part is me, that part is me. So the quote ended at, it embodies the relief and connection we experience when we share our stories. So this is where I feel that why is this quote important? Because I feel that when you're listening in, when you hear our stories, you relate to it. A lot of time you're just knowing laughter like Then knowing laughter is not because you're laughing at me.
Yeah.
You're laughing with me. Right? Laughing with me because we all know that it happens to all of us. Then knowing laughter shows that it all happens to all of us. We all have our vulnerabilities and we share these vulnerabilities. Your vulnerabilities are not that unique to you. Somebody else
You're not alone. You're not doing this alone. You're not having a difficulty yourself.
Exactly.
Somebody else have already paved the way for you.
And somebody else has overcome that for you. Somebody else is feeding that for you with you at the same time. So and I think when that happens, when you laugh with me, not at me, that gives me strength to be vulnerable because the next time, you know when you're sharing, you know you're not alone. It is not that scary. It's okay and it's not just me.
Wow.
And which is why the book title of the book is I Thought It Was Just Me, but it isn't.
And I'm enough, but I'm not perfect.
I'm enough.
Wow.
Though I'm not perfect. Yes. Yeah. I'll go and finesse it a little bit, but I
like it.
It really captures it. Yeah.
Yeah.
I'm enough. Yeah.
I hope you enjoy this episode as much as we did recording it.
I enjoy this episode so
It's a lot of vulnerability.
much.
Both of us are bringing, our different ways of showing up, but just reminding that we are all humans.
Yes.
We are all meant to be connected.
Yes.
And then just hopefully you feel connected to us.
That's right.
And if you do, please like and follow us.
Yes, of course. Yeah.
And share the link to your friends.
Yeah. And we just want to say you never know who would need this episode.
Yeah.
That's the thing about all this podcast learning. You never know who would need this. You never know who you're sharing it to and will be shared again to somebody else. And you never know what kind of impact you'll make to somebody else.
Correct.
So if you think that somebody else there should listen to this, yeah, just share it. Do yourself a favor, do your friends a favor, share it to them. You'll be surprised and you never know who this will reach to.
Yeah.
And what kind of impact you can make in someone's life.
And that is you sharing your humanity with them too.
Oh, yes.
Yeah.
Oh, awesome is that? Okay.
Thank you. My name is Maddy.
My name is Jeremy.
We are the
With
Imperfect
the
Rainbow.
Imperfect Rainbow. Thank you for listening, and
Bye.
we'll catch you the next time.
See you.
See you. Bye. 现在找一下 vulnerability 中文
你有读 business Chinese 耶？
有 vulnerability
In Chinese.
中文
脆弱性。哈。
是